Hey guys, I'm Pranvin Nissan. Welcome back to another video. Today I'll be talking about If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I just finished this book an hour ago and it was a great journey. I had a great time. It was incredibly enjoyable and I've decided to give this book a 4.5 on 5 stars. So without any further delay, let's talk about the plot of the book and what I loved so much about it and what are the parts that I didn't like. So first things first, let's talk about the plot of If We Were Villains. And we follow the story of Oliver. Oliver has been in prison for the past 10 years and he is in prison for a crime that he may or may not have committed. And today is the day he is being released from prison. His 10-year sentence is done and he has a visitor. The visitor is none other than the officer who arrested him 10 years ago. 10 years ago, what happened is very blurry. Oliver may or may not have been unfairly convicted and it has been bugging him for the past 10 years. The officer has been scratching his head trying to actually understand what happened 10 years ago. So he comes to Oliver and he says, I'm retiring from police force and you're out of prison. So please tell me what happened 10 years ago because for the rest of my life, I'm going to keep wondering what actually happened. And Oliver concedes. He's like, I'm out of prison and you're not a police officer anymore. So this is all unofficial. So I'll tell you what happened 10 years ago. So that is where we start. And then we move on to the past 10 years ago. I mean, these both are happening simultaneously. Now, 10 years ago, Oliver is 21 years old and he is studying at a fine arts institute called Delica. And we are not just following Oliver's story, but we are following the story of 7 thespians. So, we are in an institute called Delica. Delica is a fine arts institute and there is a drama class which studies Shakespeare exclusively. And in this drama class, there are 7 final year students. One of them is Oliver, James, Richard, Alexander, and then we have 3 girls, Meredith, Philippa and Wren. So these 7 are incredibly close. They've lived together, studied together, they love Shakespeare and they are inseparable. They are like siblings and they have the healthy sibling rivalry and they're very close. And the thing about these 7 people is throughout their acting career and acting lives, they have all been given just one kind of role over and over and over again. So for example, take Richard. Richard in real life has a very physically imposing personality and aura around him. So usually in plays he is given the roles of tyrannical kings or fathers, like the role of Macbeth or King Lear. He is given such roles. So in real life also, playing the same role over and over and over again, the characteristics of that role embed themselves into his psyche. And in real life also he starts acting tyrannical and giving off the aura of being a king. And in the same way, James is always given the role of hero or the chosen one or the protagonist. And in real life also people start viewing James as the hero and the protagonist of everyone's story. In the similar way, Oliver is given the roles of a side character every single time. And in real life also he starts acting like a side character. He has low self-esteem, not that much confidence, and he is always playing side fiddle to James. And each one of them has been has been given a single role and playing the same role for 4 years, same role in the sense, similar roles for 4 years, they become their roles. And it's super interesting to read about. Okay, so until the first 3 years is fine, everything is really good. So as we enter the final year, they are assigned a play, Macbeth, and in Macbeth they are already expecting the kind of roles they'll be given. But this time the roles are switched up. So it's unpredictable. People are not given the roles that they were expecting, and this does not bring out good shades in people. So there comes up a few unfriendly rivalries which lead to bitterness and which finally lead to enmity, and by the end of term, one of the 7 is dead. So it starts from a simple mix-up in the roles and ends up at a murder, and that was such an effortless slope from a simple switch up in the character in a play to a murder. So what actually happened, who ended up dead, and why did Oliver get caught in the middle of this? Oliver is not usually the main character, there is no limelight on him, but how did he end up in jail for a crime that he may or may not have committed? Did he actually kill the person? Who is the person that died? That is what you have to read this book and find out. So that was the plot of If We Were Villains, and I must say I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. I started reading it yesterday evening, I think, and it is unputdownable. I couldn't stop reading it. It was really good. The thing I liked most about this book is the dark academia aura around it. I am a huge fan of dark academia, the slow burn books set in aesthetic colleges and institutes with deep and intense characters revolving around a certain author or a certain art or a museum kind of thing. And my first brush with dark academia was The Secret History. I didn't like it very much, but this book, If We Were Villains, kept popping up on my Pinterest boards and Amazon recommendations, so I finally decided to give it a try. And the dark academia aura around it is absolutely wonderful. You are transported to this amazing institute called Deleca. It's in the middle of nowhere and it's surrounded by lake, and the college is actually a castle. The dormitories are these ancient rooms and castles and like abbeys. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I get goosebumps when I think about it because that's such an aesthetic setting. And coming to the subject, they are studying Shakespeare. So Deleca is an institute which teaches only Shakespeare. They focus solely on Shakespeare's works, writings, and everything of Shakespeare, nothing else. And combined with the setting and the subject that they are studying, oh man, it was awesome. It was dark academia at its finest. That was the first thing I loved about this book. And the second thing was Shakespeare. You think there are only 7 characters in this book while going in, but Shakespeare is such a huge, inevitable presence in this story. It's like incredible. So let me tell you this book is not especially designed for beginners. It has a lot of literary references, especially from Shakespeare, and you have to be at least a little bit familiar with his works. To understand how these characters act in real life, you need to understand the relationship between the roles they play. So you have to understand the chemistry between Banquo and Macbeth to actually understand the real life relation between the people who play their roles, who play those roles. So you need to have a little bit of Shakespeare knowledge. And these people have been studying, talking about and loving Shakespeare for like quarter of their lives, and it's a huge part of the story. They talk in poetry, they relate their lives to Shakespeare, and everything is absolutely intense. Like if you read Shakespeare's works, you know how intense his characters are. One minute they are in complete agony, and another minute they've gone to ecstasy, and then there is pain, then there's violence, then there's romance. It's absolutely bizarre and wonderful and intense. These characters are exactly like that. So reading Shakespeare over and over and over again and studying his works so much in depth has it's embedded into their personalities, Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is a huge part of this book, and I absolutely loved it. Shakespeare's writing is amazing, effortless, beautiful, and that is reflected in this book. The way in which the characters are described, the way in which they behave, the roles they are given, it's all very, very dependent on Shakespeare, and I love that about it. And the third part, you see how intense an actor's life is while reading this book. So usually we watch plays, movies, and shows, but we watch it and like observe it from an audience perspective. But now you're reading this book from the actor's perspective. So you see how incredibly hard it is to be an actor. Like you have a huge set of lines and characteristics you have to imitate for a certain period of time. Immediately after that, you're given another character. Then you have to remove yourself from that previous character and learn how to behave like the next character. And you keep doing it throughout your career, throughout your life. And at one point, the line between your actual character, your personality, and the characters you played begins to blur. And you start to act like the characters you play. And that is so very well interpreted in this book, because you see how incredibly Shakespeare has impacted these 7 lives. And that is absolutely chilling, the effect literature and words can have on people's real lives. And the hard work these kids put into acting, the dedication they have, and not just acting, you see how costumes are made, and you see how they fake the sword play. I mean, if you know Shakespeare, it's mostly violence and blood and sword play and fighting and all. And when we are watching, it looks so convincing that they're actually killing each other, but you see behind the scenes how it's actually done, how the blood gushing scenes, how the sword play, how the fight, and how the sound effects are given. It's really good. It's really, really educating and entertaining at the same time. And then coming to the fourth thing I liked about this book was it had everything. It had the atmosphere, it had the aura, and the place where I'm living right now, it's it's rainy, and it's been raining for the past few days, so it's like the perfect time to read such dark academia books. And oh, it was incredible. It had friendship. Friendship is the theme of this book. You see the rivalry, the friendship, the enmity, the possessiveness between these seven people, these seven characters. They're so young and volatile, and the relationship they have, the chemistry they have, how they have each other's backs, and sometimes how they are willing to do anything to save their friendship. It's incredible. It has passion, romance. It's basically a murder mystery, so you've got some thrill and murder as well. And you get frustrated with a few characters every once in a while, but that's the part of the deal. And I liked it really, really very much. The way the characters were set, how you know about those characters, knowing in the sense not just when they were born, where did they come from, not all that. Their real, true nature, their weaknesses, their strengths. Their embarrassments. Would they be willing to kill a person to save themselves? Would they be willing to kill a person to get the lead role in the play of Caesar? So these are all the kind of things you know about the characters. And the place and setting I've already told you is incredible. So now let's talk about the plot. The plot is slow paced. It's no surprise that all dark academia books are so slow paced. It's part of the deal. You have this bunch of characters and setting, and you are fixed there. You follow their everyday lives slowly. That is the part of the charm of dark academia. So don't expect a fast plot. This book it gives the experience of being very fast paced, and the story is done really quickly. But if you really think about it, you didn't witness that much. You know a lot, but you didn't witness that much. That was such an effortless move on the author's part. Like she tells it, I mean, the author tells you so much about the characters, the plot, their lives, but at the end of the book you're like, that happened in a short period of time, but it was slow, but I learned a lot about them, and it's awesome. I feel like I'm overhyping this book. Maybe you feel like I'm overhyping this book. Maybe I am in my excitement, but I really enjoyed this book. The artistic part of it, the Shakespeare part of it, the plot, the characters, the pace of this book, everything was perfect for me. The half point I removed from this book because of its predictability. So if you think about it, if you remove all the aesthetic value from this book, all the extraordinary character development, character depth and character background part of this book, this is basically a high school murder mystery. I mean, it's not high school, everyone here is 22 years old, but it feels like a high school murder mystery, like one of us is lying kind of book. So it's predictable at places. It's not entirely predictable like you're bored. There are a few instances where you'll be bored, but it's not entirely boring. It has its merits, but it's predictable at places. You know what's going to happen next. You know how the character is going to react. There is nothing super original or extraordinarily unique about this book or characters. The way they are portrayed and the way the story is told is really good, but the story itself is a bit lackluster. It could have been done well. You could have added more magic and more thrill and mystery into it and made it a little bit more unpredictable. But apart from that, everything about this book is incredible. So this is the kind of book you read when it's raining. It's all like dark and cold, and you just grab yourself a cup of coffee or hot chocolate and light a candle and create the dark academia atmosphere and read it, and you'll have the time of your life. So I listened to the free audiobook version that's available on VK. I'll leave a link to the free audiobook in the description box down below. I really urge you to read this just so that I can have someone that I can discuss it with. And please let me know what you thought of this book in the comment section down below. And I'm so out of breath. So until the next video, goodbye.